since? I mean, like really seen him since September. What have you seen over the last 2.5 months?
Just, he continues to grow. He's a guy that's, pretty trustworthy, understands the game. Um, he's been more and more explosive the more reps he's gotten. So, I mean, I'm pretty excited for his opportunities. I mean, you saw the first carry that he got in there. So it doesn't seem like the game's too big for him. I mean, he's just, from day one, he's always went about his business as a professional. So I expect a really good performance out of him.
What's the biggest difference in AJ's game from right now to a year ago?
I think a big part of it is just even just the mental aspect of now. I think sometimes when you know that you're going to be relied on, whereas last year he didn't have to worry about that. I mean, you go about your business with a lot more urgency. It's not to say that he didn't last year, but I think that's the biggest thing is seeing opportunity and then just ready to get in there and show what he's capable of doing. So I think it's probably more mental than it is just physical, although he has made some physical improvements also.
What about from that physical side?
I think the biggest thing with him is just, his explosion seems to has gotten a lot better, running lower than what he did when he first got here. Just some technical things, like even his pass protection, knock on wood, because I know he'll be challenged this week, has gotten a lot better from the way that he would his technique from last year has gotten a lot better. So.
What was going through your mind when you saw Aaron hopping off and grabbing his knee and then going down?
I'll tell you, because at first, I was pretty surprised by it because I guess he was on his way back to the huddle, then all of a sudden I see him coming off. I mean, it was just one of those deals like man, I wonder what, like what's going on, with this guy. I try not to speculate about anything until you get the report, and unfortunately for us, it was late enough, in the game that, where he didn't have opportunity to come back in, we still had, enough time where AJ could take a bulk of the reps and then, be ready to get Patrick in it. But it was very scary.
How much can AJ handle? I mean, the Boston College, he got the ball 30 times a week, pretty routinely.
Well,
that's probably not what you want to do here, but
yeah. Well, if you ask him, which I have, I mean, he feels like he can carry the ball 35 times if he had to, because like you said, I mean, he did it a bunch, at BC, so he still has that type of mindset. Obviously, I think he's capable of carrying. You wouldn't probably want him to carry any more than like the mid-20s. I think that's still a lot for any running back in the NFL. But it's one of those deals that, we'll see. We'll see how the game goes, see how much he can handle, and who knows.
So how do you be judicious with his snaps? Because I'm sure you would like him out there all the time. How do you pick and choose the right spots that, okay, we can bring in Patrick or whatever you're going to do?
Well, I mean, it's really sometimes you try to do it based off how many reps there are in the drive. Sometimes it's based off of plays. If he's carrying the ball several times in a row, or carrying the ball 4 or 5 times, and then all of a sudden we send him on a go route, I may say, well, this might be a good time, just to take him out. Or we may, because there's going to be some of those drives where Patrick's going to have to start the drive off, which I, ready for him to do that. So part of it I try to gauge, even if you just look at the last game, he had several plays in a row off the pass, and I got him out of it. You could say the same thing even with Aaron. After he caught those consecutive big plays for screens, and I think he had another play, then I decided, well, he's not as fresh. Let me get a fresher guy, in there. Because when you have fresh backs in there and you got the defense out there, I mean, the opportunity for them to be productive goes up. But you got to trust the guys, too, that you're putting in there.
You've coached a lot of good backs already in your career. Based on what AJ flashed last year, what he's improved on, and then what you've seen this year, what do you kind of think his potential or ceiling can take him?
I think, it's one of those deals, especially as, he gets down the road a little bit with his career and some of the things that he can do. I mean, I think that, you hate to say, the sky's the limit and put that type of pressure on a guy, but I definitely think that he's got the ability to be one of the better backs, in this league. If that arrow just keeps pointing in the right direction. I mean, for a guy his size that can make the cuts that he can make, and he's a lot faster than what people think. And then when he drops his pads, he can move people. He's got good hands. So, I mean, when you combine all those different traits, I mean, usually that leads to a guy that's going to be very productive down the road.
And Seattle's defense pretty physical, with real good linebackers, hard-hitting safeties, and Minnesota's probably not that much different than them. How did you think you reacted to that physicalness in the run game, this past game? And is that any kind of a blueprint for how you have to face this week?
You talking about as it relates to AJ or just in general?
Just the run game
Oh.
particular, how physical, going up against a physical defense, how you thought you handled that?
Well, I thought overall, we did a pretty good job just in handling. We knew it was going to be a physical game. That's how Seattle is, and it's the same thing with Minnesota. I think the biggest thing that, like I know relate to my guys, and I know we relate to the guys up front, is that you just got to be ready to compete. Every play, every game, no matter who you're facing. I mean, this Minnesota defense, they know how to fit up on a run pretty well. Like you said, they are physical, and they play with a high tempo and a high motor. So when you start combining all those things with the fact that they got a bunch of guys on there that have really good football IQs, I mean, it's going to be a physical game, and it's going to be physical also because most of the time they're going to be in position to make a play. So you got to be ready to bring it on every play. So, yeah, it's just all about competing. You just got to have the mindset that I know I have to compete.
Ben, obviously Patrick went through a lot coming out of college and the foot thing and getting that finally fixed. What kind of vibe did you get from him last year? Bill was asking earlier about what a note taker he is. We've heard about that, but for a guy that wasn't able to do anything last year, did he make that as productive as anybody could have based on what he learned, or what you see there?
Yeah, I think I think that's probably the first thing that really stood out. Because obviously he wasn't doing anything from a physical standpoint, and that's why I made the comments earlier about how professional he is. I mean, his notes are impeccable. I mean, just how he writes them down, organizes them. But it's one thing to write things down, but then to be able to spit back, what you've learned and be able to answer questions as quickly as guys that have been in this offense for several years. So you're really encouraged by that, first because now you feel like, well, this is a guy that, number one, it doesn't matter how talented you are, you have to have trust in that player. So the first thing you start thinking, well, I think this is a guy that we're going to be able to at the very least, trust. And then we'll see how his physical skills are when he's finally able to get out there on the field. And he's got really good explosion. He can read. I mean, you tell him one thing and, say, okay, here's how this play is going to break down. He can understand that, the concepts of it, and then execute it. So it just gives you a really good trust in the guy. So even though he didn't play last year, I couldn't wait just to get him out there on the football field just to see him apply what he's learned to the real test, which is actually playing and performing.
You can score a lot of points with the old school teacher.
It does. It does. And, and the thing about it is also, I mean, he shares like information with some of the other guys, even some of the newer guys that come in. So